I'm sure that you didn't expect so many life lessons when we came on today for this podcast, man. But this is why I appreciate talking to you. Your intellect, kind of your appreciation, your attention, and your intention. I just love that about you.
They call us coach because there's a ball, but you could call us teacher as well.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Bear Insider, Ultimate Insider Podcast. I am Mike Pawlawski, and today we have Peter Sirmon with us. And I love Peter. As a quarterback, I'm not supposed to love defensive coordinators. I'm not supposed to love walking in that office. But I love walking in his office and having conversations because they're so much deeper than just football or just X's and O's. We always talk about life and everything else in general. Today, we are talking about the defense, however. And so we're going to bring you that. Spring ball just ended. First off, Peter, welcome to the podcast.
Good to be here. And, I'm thankful that you enjoy the conversations because there's some people that don't like talking to me, Mike. So I appreciate that we connected.
Yeah, that's great. So we just finished spring ball, and you got to look at your defense. Got, 15 full go reps, as it were, in the spring. Tell me just kind of general observation, what you think of the defense so far.
The spring, the format of what we did practice-wise, I think was the biggest adjustment. You know, you've seen some practice, Mike. We went out there and we just put the ball down, and we just called it PTG, play the game, and let the first down, second down, third down, and some of the rhythm of practice get a little bit closer to the games. Traditionally, we've been kind of a stripped down and distance operation, which led you to essentially no consequence, positive or negative, from the previous play. So I think just the playing more football, getting the guys kind of in the rhythm of some of the substitutions and some of the ball moving around a little bit, I think was the biggest kind of overall change that we had. Defensively, we added a lot of new guys, especially in the back end. And, that was really the key of trying to get out of spring ball is, what are our strengths? What do we see this defense moving forward?
And this coaching staff, obviously very DB heavy in terms of coaches, right? Coach Wilcox himself, a defensive back. And so let's start back there. On the very back end of it, you said the backside, you added some dudes. What does it look like right now for the Bears in that secondary? Obviously, Craig Woodson's a stud coming in, right? We know Craig. We know what he's about. But talk about the other guys out there on defense in that back end.
Yeah, I mean, I'll you start with Craig, but I'll also start with Craig. Craig has been with us for years. He had that little bump in the road with an ACL, I think about 2 seasons ago. But Craig is really going to be the heartbeat of what we're doing back there. He's a fantastic tackler. I think he has as good an instincts as anybody that we have had in the last 5-6 years, and that's saying a lot.
That's a lot.
Craig is around the ball. He's a guy that can, also block punts. He blocked a punt a couple seasons ago down at UCLA. So he's really going to be the heartbeat back there. And then really kind of jump out to the outside part. We added Noel Williams from UNLV, who, eventually we'll talk about this transfer portal, Mike, but Coach Watson actually recruited him, to UNLV. So there's going to be a lot of carryover and a lot of instances that you see history of coming back around. And that's kind of where some of these kids are going to land. But Noel has been a fantastic addition. He really is a well-groomed college player. He's extremely focused on detail. His behavior and his mannerisms really kind of were shown in the weight room in the offseason in the winter, from how he ran to where he was in line, to how his body posture when he was tired, to how he attacked the weight room. So his play in the spring really matched what we saw in the winter.
Not to cut you off, I think that's a unique point, though, nowadays with the transfer portal and with bringing in upperclassmen. I don't remember if it was you or if it was Coach Wilcox that told me once, you don't have to worry about making them college students anymore. Like when a guy comes in that way, they're college students. How much of a benefit is that to you as a coach?
Well, that's going to be the ultimate positive of the transfer portal, because we can go a lot of different directions. Even with this this little conversation just kind of opened up a page. It's, you don't like talking about misses or things like that because you get very individualized. But when you think big picture in college recruiting, once you sign a player, to get him to the point that he is able to actually help the program and help us win games, there's a lot of young men that never get to that point, either for, any number of reasons: injury, lack of really desire to put forth the necessary effort to get here, opportunity, maybe we overshot what their ability to develop was, and they didn't develop further. So there's a tremendous amount of recruited players that never translate for a number of different reasons. Where the transfer portal, essentially the wheat and the chaff they've kind of separated themselves. So these guys that are in the transfer portal, they're not perfect by any means, but they've they've made it through that first initial hurdle of the transition from being a high school student to being a functioning college student, and then an athlete, and still having the passion and the desire to continue to develop.
And we'll talk a little more about transfer portal, because like you said, it's so deep at this point that we'll talk about it. We'll touch on that in just a little bit. We were talking about the defensive backs. We ended up with Noah Williams. Let's move on here.
Yep.
Who else on that backhand?
Yep. And then we added Kalen Moore from Colorado. Kalen's a player that I think could play the nickel position for us. I think he could play the corner position for us. And Trey and Terrence rotated him. And they had a really nice plan, I thought, of getting him acclimated. And that's not an easy thing to do. So that's very complimentary of Kalen to be able to play on the outside part of the field, and then to be able to even within spring to be able to jump inside and give us some nickel reps as well. Another guy on the outside, Lou Maja, has continued to take those steps. And, he played quite a bit for us right prior to the Colorado game. Then he ended up, getting dinged up in the Colorado game, and he really wasn't available to the degree that we would have liked him to be, and as he would have liked to be. So it was good to get him back. He really had some flash plays as a true freshman, and we really need him, and he really wants to take that next step of being a more consistent performer, going out there and getting an opportunity to play against some of the best wide receivers and continuing to get better as he develops.
Oftentimes that growth year, right, that sophomore year, and the injury gives you that impetus, that focus, all those things to kind of make you a better player. And knowing him and seeing what he was like as a freshman and kind of the program he comes from in De La Salle, I expect him to take that jump as well.
Yes, we expect him, and he, quite frankly, he needs to. He needs to, for our defense to play where I think our talent level is going to be at this season. It's very easy to get inflated hopes for a young man coming in as a true freshman with not really the entire burden of playing the entire game. You go out and watch him make a few plays, but I think it's a learning curve from being a situational player that enjoys success to the transition of the guy carrying the heaviest backpack and having to do it down in and down out, and the preparation and all those different components that go into the mental and the psychological strength of that's a lonely position out there.
Yeah, you are on an island at all times. And I don't think they got a chance to play, but Cam Bynum was pretty good at carrying that heavy backpack out there too, right? There's a great example for him.
Yes, you're exactly right. So, that's where, the development of being a situational player to being a full-time player, it's more than, it's more than just on Saturday, for 2.5 hours. Another guy on the outside, Jeremiah Irby, we really like Herb Dog, again, but he's going to be, that exact same situation that we just referred to with Lou Maja. That's where Jeremiah is going to find himself. A relative unknown, come in extremely hungry, played as a true freshman, made some plays, showed the willingness to to be a physical tackler on the outside. But then as his workload increases, it's that mental aptitude, it's that resilience to a bad play, how you bounce back. So Irby is just really a year behind of Lumaja. So, both those guys are in different tracks, but both the same challenges.
And he made one of the greatest interceptions I've ever seen. Like early on when we first saw him on the field, he made that turn back spin, catch the ball last second. Like, it was incredible, especially for a true freshman.
Mike, that game, that game, you could argue won the game. I mean, that play won the game for us. The way he spun off that and tracked the ball and the coordination and the eye hand, and then get his foot down.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, it was one of the great interceptions I've seen in, almost 4 decades of football. So it was pretty impressive.
I would agree. And then really the last guy that got a bunch of reps on the outside was Isaiah Young. Isaiah's been with us for several years now. And, he's a guy that can play, he can play inside, he can play outside, and it's good to see him continue to grow and compete.
So, and that was one of those positions. Obviously, injuries was a big piece of it, which is why Jeremiah got to, a lot of reps out there at that corner position, was because you had some injuries. So that's a big place. Obviously, you guys have focused on in the offseason, trying to kind of get some stuff in. I'm sure the corner is always a spot that you want to bring dudes in and get them to play because it's tough. Their best friend, however, and we'll jump here now, is that defensive line, right? A corner's best friend is the pass rush. What can they do? How can they put pressure on the quarterback? How can you affect that dude so he has to throw when he's not ready or off balance or late or whatever it is? And so talk to me about the defensive line. For me, as an ex-quarterback, that's been the one spot on defense where I feel like you could make the biggest push. And Brett Johnson being injured was a huge piece of that. But some personnel and some injuries that didn't happen, and it's a completely different animal.
Yeah, and then, that's a great segue of, we kind of, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but really the biggest opportunity and the biggest focus that I've challenged the defense is explosive pass plays. Explosive pass plays, we were not good last year. And those are any plays over 15 yards. So right now we're throwing all X plays into a bucket regardless of the down, regardless, anything 15 plus for our own self. Everybody has different, some people evaluate X runs and X passes differently, and they all go in the same bucket for us. I think we're number 2 or number 3 in the conference in X runs against, and we weren't very strong with X passes against, and that is exactly to your point. When we talk about the throw game and the issues that we need to correct, I always say it's a we problem. It's the defensive backs, it's the D-line, it's the linebackers in zone coverage, it's how we rush the quarterback, it's how we tackle the ball once the ball gets thrown. So I think your point of the defensive line is a appropriate segue into talking about them and how those guys are going to be instrumental in the throw game. In the last 2 years, I felt really good about our numbers of what we had when we first started the fall.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's been, sometimes you get a rough run of it, and, some of those guys are no longer available. So getting these guys back, getting Stanley back, in the spring, getting Brett back, on schedule to come on back, Derek Wilkins to come on back, Akili Calhoun to come on back. I think if our guys continue to stay healthy, I think you're going to see more interior players with a greater workload than we've had in the last 2 or 3 years. That's a big point of emphasis for us is, how do we get those guys, the guys that are coming back, how do we get them healthy and up to speed? And then how do we continue to distribute that workload and really get everybody the best reps and the best opportunities to play fresh and to continue to, we need to continue to be more disruptive up front in the run game and the throw game.
Yeah, and to your earlier point, having your D-line with so many injuries and your corners with so many injuries, it makes it tough to be good against explosive passes. because no matter how good the kids are you recruit when they're young and when they're inexperienced, people are still going to take advantage of them. I would look for that number out there. I'd look for the fish. Who haven't we seen before? Let's go after that guy. And if I'm not getting pressure, and again, no knock to younger players, they just don't have the experience, the reps, the time put in to make it happen. That's just naturally where you attack, and you play in the Pac-12. It's as good a conference as there is, so guys are going to be able to take advantage of those mismatches.
Yeah, and 2 years ago, the offensive style, probably not the offensive style, but really the skill has tremendously increased. As much as we talk about the transfer portal helping us, it's always relative. As we increase, the tide is rising, and all the boats are improving. And in the past, some of these offenses, they couldn't fix their recruiting errors. Now, there's really not a recruiting error anymore, because you can fix it immediately from somebody else. So the style of play and the efficiency that the offenses are throwing the ball right now in our conferences is actually quite remarkable.
Yeah, and let's talk about that real quick, because you are facing different stuff. That a lot of the air raid concepts have become standard concepts in the Pac-12. You look at the guys who come from that air raid tree, and you have Oregon was running it last year. They'll be running it again. Washington State was running it last year. They'll be running it again. USC is running it with Lincoln Riley, who probably runs it as good as anybody in the country in terms of what he does. Chip Kelly runs a lot of the same concepts. His run game is more unique, but he runs a lot of the same concepts. You're going to have it down in Arizona State. So you're going to face that air raid type system where pass, run, screen options all work against you at the same time, and it makes it tough on your side of the ball.
It really does. And it comes back to, like defensively is how many snaps in a game can we play coverage that we are challenging throws. In the past, I can go back 4 or 5 years ago, we were a big, what I call it, a zone quarters team, not a hard pattern match, or some people call it a vision quarters, however you want to see it. And a vision quarter philosophy is see the ball thrown. You're going to give up completions. You're not going to contest easy throws, and you're going to tackle. And you're really just going to try to wait it out. Will they make a mistake? Will they miss the smash concept on 1st and 10, get to 2nd and 10? Where the efficiency and the completion percentages and the accuracy of the quarterbacks has tremendously changed in this air raid-ish style of play that we're all seeing. And I think you can go back, and I think you're seeing the rise of 7-on-7, which is insignificant in how you feel about it. I see a better development of the throwing and catching of the football, and the better understanding of, if you go out and watch these guys practice, you'll hear the word grass, find the grass, find the grass, find the grass, find the space. And that, from our background, Mike, or at least my background, defensively, in my time with different guys, the precision of the throw game was the depth of your route, how high you were taking it. Okay, I'm 3 big, 2 little, whatever that is, that the guys had, it was imperative to reach their spacings, to reach their landmarks. That is
gone.
That is gone. Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean,
it's funny because I was literally just thinking about this today. It was one of the questions that I'm posing in another podcast. It was, how much do your biases kind of affect your thought process when you're looking at dudes? And I was raised in the West Coast style of system. It is, if you run a 12-yard route, I'm taking a 5-step under center drop. If it's an out route, it's a 3+2 quick set. If, it's like everything is absolutely pattern matched perfectly because timing beats coverage.
Yes.
But Mike Leach and Hal Mummy come along, and they steal from LaVell Edwards, and they say, oh, look, there's an open spot over there. You just go kind of run to that. And whatever they're doing, it doesn't really matter what they're doing in terms of coverage. Just find some open space, and the quarterback's going to read that. And that, I had to wrap my head around that as a coach coaching youth quarterbacks. I had to wrap my head around this whole progression system, run to grass concept that took me a while to get there. And so your point is well taken, that no matter, you can have the exact perfect coverage on, but they've got a screen option and a pass option together. And so you may have the pass option perfectly matched, but he says, oh, well, they got that mesh, let's throw the screen because there's open space. Or, oh, it's going to mesh, but I can climb on that mesh because they're leaving space behind the linebacker. Like, you can't be right if the offense is run properly.
You're correct. And that's the beauty of what they're doing offensively. And with the frequency of plays, every time you're out there defensively, you're giving up yards. It's just it's a mathematical thing. It's the YPP, yards per play. And however that's going to happen, it's once you're out there, it's how you manage it, explosive plays, and then how you get takeaways.
Yeah, make them work for it, right? And then compress them. Once you get down inside the 10, now it gets a lot tougher to get that stuff done. So, agreed. I just think it's tough as a defensive coordinator. And it always goes back and forth, right? The 46 and that Bear defense completely changed the game for offenses. Like, offenses had to adjust. And I'm sure defenses, and you can tell me, are adjusting to this new system. What are defenses doing to react to that?
We're adjusting, but there's going to be a point that, in my opinion, the offense always has the pin last.
All right.
It's 4 or 5, maybe 9, 10 years ago, you started getting some of these the hard counts, right, to really kind of undress the coverage, and the coordinator was really playing Madden. Is how I saw it on the sidelines. Now you might have a run to run option, you might have a run to pass option. You might have all these different tags that we only get 11. I have to provide a box. We can have a guy in or out of the box, but there's always going to be a point of, all my 50-50 guys, something has to win. You can't allow a 50-50 player, an overhang defender in quarters. Something has to win. Something has to be, what you play first and what you play second based on the picture that you get. So when they can make adjustments post snap off of a number and leverage, if quarterback is, can handle some of the pre-snap shells and the post-snap shells, those are going to be really challenging for us. But it's still the execution. What I find is talking offensive coaches, they do have literally all the answers. However, let's make sure we understand there's still 11 people haven't execute. There's still a snap count. There's still IDs of fronts. There's still a point. There's still, okay, my overhang, I thought I had big box and I had outside leverage. Then post snap, he went to inside leverage. The quarterback eyes didn't see it. So as much as these offenses are exceptionally good to talk through and to clinic through, they still have to execute. And that's where the defensive side of the ball, being aggressive up front, trying to play a little bit more attached, a little stickier coverage, of not allowing all the space in the grass to be found. I mean, you go around, I think you're going to see more and more tighter coverage, so you don't get easy access throws and pitch and catches.
Yeah, and a big edge rush guy helps that a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can get home and rattle that quarterback's cage a little bit. That gets you in good shape. Well, obviously, Brett Johnson's more of an interior guy, but in terms of edge rushers, what are you looking at in terms of your team, the guys that you have on campus right now? What are you projecting at?
Yeah, I'm actually go back because I didn't talk about Ethan Saunders interior wide. Right. Ethan is, once you talked about edge rushers, I see Ethan being a big part of what we rush, from the interior position. I think he can do a good job as a 3 or a G inside. The situation that you're going to find yourself in, which is a little bit of a, kind of going back to the offensive side, is how many true drop back pass opportunities you're going to get, because the RPO, the run to pass option play, is extremely hard to rush the quarterback. You get a base out as a 3 and, you're getting inside zone look. That's a very tough transition to change your mindset and then, get transition up the field. And typically those are all going to be RPOs, with some of those looks. So I think as we continue to go, I think you're going to continue to see, I wouldn't say inflated, but you'll see the continued rise in the offensive output. And I will think you will continue to see a slight diminishment of the true sack number. As offenses don't get, some of the more traditional drop back pass games, and the ball is RPO'd out. And even on some of these, you put the ball on the plus side of the field, is third down, or is third down, second down. So the traditional times I was getting to, hey, it's third and more than 6, we're going, boy, it is, if you give them a bad box, from my point of view, and they want to run inside zone on it, you can't rush the passer on those, the kind of down and distance. You're like, oh man, is this 2 down territory?
Right.
And, you have to identify, is their efficiency drop back pass, is their efficiency better than the RPO game and taking what you give them in terms of yards per play?
And not only do you do that, but you have to do it within 25 seconds.
Yes. So that's where, I think the rushes, I think we're going to have to find another sweet spot in terms of how we identify our impact. It's, I don't know what the term's going to be, but it's going to be impact rushes. It's going to be change the launch point rushes. There's going to be another defensive statistic that is not going to be a defined statistic, very similar to, I think, tackles. I don't think tackles are a recognized statistic. There's a stat, but it's a little bit harder to navigate than rush yards. You know where the ball was thrown. You know who caught it. There's a little bit of subjectivity to it, and I think somebody's going to end up trying to quantify impact rushes.
Yeah, I mean, they come up with an answer for everything, so I'm sure they would. Let's move on now, and we're going to hit the position near and dear to you, obviously, the linebacker. And your boy is back there. One of the dudes that I love watching play because he is always in the right spot, and he is clearly a leader on the field. And he's a guy that, it seems to me, just from watching him, I don't know Jackson extremely well, but it seems like he just has a passion for the game, right? He's out there, he's leading, he's playing hard, he's doing the right things. And so I've enjoyed watching him. Let's talk about Jackson first, because he's clearly the centerpiece of that linebacker crew.
Yeah, Jackson is, I'm proud of what Jackson has done, in terms of he's been a better football player every year than he was the year before. And for me, that's probably the highest compliment as I can pay a player. It's
period. That's a great, you just keep getting better.
You keep getting better. And, that goes to, there's a lot of facets to that. There is availability, opportunity, and then desire. All those things, none of them are worth the darn without the other. And you have to have all of them to be a player for an extended period of time. So I think those 3 things, he's continuing, and I expect him to get better again this year. There are things that I want him to do better. Challenge him to be more of an impactful player. We need more interceptions. The Colorado, the beautiful play between Herb and him and the Stanford game is our best players need to not just make their plays, they need to make impactful plays that can help our team win. And that's hustle plays.
Make plays, yeah.
Yes, it's, if we all just do our job, that sounds good, but, the best players got to make the plays. Yep. And that's where, Jackson's focus is not to diminish, making contact. I'm not asking him to be a home run hitter and not a on base guy. It's, you got to make your plays, and when the opportunity presents itself, you got to help us win the game. And then, it's been great. We brought in Sergio Allen from Clemson. And, the guys that we brought in, I think we did, right now, knowing the guys for about 5 months now. I think the best thing we've done on defense is bring the right type of kids in. And that is, that takes some background work, that takes some gut intuition, because when players leave programs, you don't always get
there's a reason,
the real stories. So you have to talk to a young man, you have to talk to somebody you trust, because the same way that when anybody leaves a program, none of us are in the business of preventing a player from getting an opportunity. But you also need to be able to distinguish between, okay, why didn't it work for that player? And, the guys that we're trying to hone in on are guys that want to, maybe at a lower level, they want to consistently compete against better players on Saturdays. And then the other kind of player is you're looking for a very talented player that is behind a first-round pick. That's behind
a talented player, right?
Pick.
Yeah.
Serge is one of those guys. You watch Clemson year in, year out. Just because you can't play 80 snaps at Clemson doesn't mean you're not a quality player. It's just that some programs are at a point recruiting that it's
they're stacked.
They're stacked. And I think this is the really positive part of the transfer portal is it gives the guys the flexibility to find a place that they can contribute. But Serge has been a great addition to us. And really a guy that I'm super excited about, Mike, is Caleb Elamzor, KJ. He, from Monroe Catholic, he has taken a tremendous step. He was an edge player, really, from what we recruited him, he was an edge player. He was a very disruptive edge player in high school. And had I been his high school coach, I would have played him on the edge too, because guys couldn't block him.
Right.
He played that spring season. He popped an ACL, and then he came to us, and then he was really kind of in that rehab, getting back on the field. We've played him inside. We've always projected him as being an inside player. Last year, he was rehabbing himself through it. The playbook wasn't quite making sense, but KJ, this entire offseason has really, really, really dedicated himself to the mental part of the linebacker position. He's been countless hours, sitting down with myself, with Coach Taylor, really a lot, with Coach Taylor in our meeting room, it just preparing himself. And he had a fantastic spring. If there's anybody at the inside linebacker room that I would give a most improved, it'd be Caleb. So nice. That's exciting for him. Blake Anzalatis is still, he's in there fighting with Serge and KJ, playing what we call the Mike linebacker position. Blake is as tough a kid as we have on the team. We just got to continue to keep him available.
He's got some nasty to him.
He does. He's an extremely explosive athlete. He's a violent finisher. We just need more availability, and that's something he's taken a good hard look at, and he's doing everything he can to become available more often. Nate Ricina is another quality player. Monta Vista, had a chance to watch him play a ton of high school games, played safety, played wide receiver, returned kicks, and he's another player that we're really, really thankful to have, and he'll continue to get better, and he'll keep getting opportunities. And we moved Hunter Barth from the safety position down to linebacker, and I think that's a better spot for him. I think he could play safety, but I think he's a more natural a linebacker. I think we're getting him up to about 215, 217 right now. And he, from where he was practice 15 to where he was practice 1, he'd be right behind Caleb as most improved.
Oh, nice. Does he become like a nickel dime type flow guy who can do both?
Right now, we're keeping him as that inside position. But yes, we could put him as that DD, that dime position that becomes more of the kind of the cover linebacker. We did not really dive into that a great deal in the spring, but he does have that capacity of maybe helping us with some tight ends and some man-to-man situations.
Yeah, as a former safety, you would think that that's kind of a natural fit for him there as well. We said we're going to talk about the transfer portal and NIL and kind of everything going on out there, because I came into your office and I came in with that classic old crotchety guy of, the whole situation, college football, boy, what. And you had a unique take on it that just kind of spun me, and I'm like, you're exactly right. So talk about that take about today's age of college football.
I think where we're kind of at, and, we were all exactly where you were, Mike. So this is not something that, we've embraced and just, without a lot of talking and heartache. But what we found is the best way of taking this situation is to embrace it. How many stories do we all have? Oh, back in the day, back when we used to do triples. We care, but nobody cares, right? We care because you did it. We did it. But for it being our livelihood, it's everything with your eyes forward. And we talk a lot about chaos. Where there's chaos, there's opportunity. I don't care what field you're in. There's always going to be people that navigate chaos well, and there's going to be people that navigate chaos poorly. Where we need to situate ourselves and within our parameters of how we work, which is a whole structural thing, right? From the university, from the conference, from TV rights, distributions. It is a holistic approach that our conference has to take. And then for us, what's our niche? What's our sweet spot? And we need to embrace that sweet spot of first of all, identifying it. And, we're trying to continue to navigate of, where do we make hay from the high school kids? Where did JUCO players fit in our program? And then how do we supplement our program through the transfer portal? So we don't have it all figured out. No one has it all figured out.
Right. Because it's still morphing. It's still changing every day.
It is. And as kind of the guidelines continue to move around a little bit, and the guidelines that are enforced and the guidelines that aren't enforced, you're going to see different programs take different approaches. And, that's for everybody to figure out for their own building and their own university. What's their comfort level? What does the football program mean to the university? There's so many more dynamics. And then, what is the support at your university look like, and what are their tolerances as well?
Yeah, and so much goes into that mix. As we talked about, I'm writing a book right now on these personal development properties, these philosophies, and you hit on one of those human truisms that's you can either ignore and bitch about your circumstances and the problem, and you can extend it and create more problems and more anxiety and more issues for yourself, or you can face it, take it on, own it, and get through it, right? You can bitch about it or you can be about it. And kind of the way your approach to me is the perfect approach is like, hey, this is what it is. So we got to live in this environment. Let's go. And I love that.
It's, there's so much changing in our, you hate to say it, but when you start hearing people talk about changes, you're like in your space, whatever space that is. And I think every profession is feeling that. I don't know how much subtlety there is in these spaces that are changing. I think what we're feeling right now in all professions is a tremendous, uneasy shift in the way that things have been done.
Yeah.
And, I think, you hear people talk about growth mindset or fixed mindset. If you're not in a growth mindset, if you're not willing to adapt, right? If you're not willing to Mike, you brought up earlier, some of our biases from our previous experiences. Those need to be experiences, not biases. Those need to be part of the education of understanding yourself, understanding where you're coming from, understanding the lens in which you're seeing things, but the ability to grow through that, which that's where you'll see a separation in every profession. It's
you delve into the richness of your repertoire, right? Like I had this experience, which I can add to this discussion.
There's a bunch of coaches that maybe, hey, they're starting in this NIL space right now, but they will not have the development aspect, the years and years of high school projections and developing players. So, they might have strengths in a certain space, but in another space of, I don't know how to develop a relationship with a high school kid for 2 years. I'm just at a school that we can NIL him and we can pay him more than the market. So I'm a hell of a recruiter. Well, you should be a hell of a recruiter if you can
You got a big checkbook. Yeah.
If you got the biggest checkbook, if you can't recruit kids with a big checkbook, then I don't know what you're doing. So it's, typically the guys that pay the most for the NIL are it's kind of odd that they're the best recruiters.
It's amazing how that works, isn't it? So your prediction, does the transfer portal and NIL, does it become the smaller schools, the FCS, the Mountain West, that kind of stuff? Does that become the feeder system where high school kids now go? And I just think about this because I work with high school quarterbacks all the time. High school kids now get recruited. Some of them make it out, right? The superstars make it to the big schools. But then do the other kids go and kind of cut their teeth in the smaller schools and then pop and take the ride up the ladder? What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's two parts to that, Mike. I believe that the smaller schools will be feeders. I'm not sure that the way you described it is how they will become feeder schools. I don't know if kids will look at the way that maybe you're looking at it as a
sure. Everybody thinks they're an all-star. I get that.
And that's something that I don't see that changing unless there is an extremely strong coach, mentor, mother, father, uncle, something has to be extremely unique, and that player has to be accepting of a different narrative.
Yeah.
And that's, we all know people, and we all know competitive men, talking about football, competitive men, they honest to gosh think they can do anything.
They have to.
And that's the strength, and that's also the blind spot as well. It's sometimes we don't have appropriate awareness, but to have appropriate awareness, you don't do great things with self-doubt.
Yeah. Or if you do, you fight through it. But
like going and pushing and believing in yourself and doing things that either people thought you couldn't do or you didn't think you could do, but you're extremely driven. So I don't know how you're going to tell a player that could go Power 5, hey, you know what? Have you ever thought about going one division down, getting on the field, and then matriculating yourself up and have a better opportunity, better choice, better foundation? I just don't know if that is going to be digestible for a young man. I just don't know.
I would agree with that 100%. I think if it happens, the system forces it to happen that way, right? There's just no opportunity at the next level. I've seen a lot of these FCS schools, Portland State and other schools that are saying our recruiting classes are great because the NIL is keeping some of these high school kids out of being, accept or recruited by the larger schools. And so I just think that the system creates that dynamic potentially, but you're right. I'm around, I can't tell you how many D1 players I'm around every year in high school football, when the reality is you see very, very, very few of them in high school football. And that's true.
And really, I think the transfer portal is really going to keep the levels really exactly where they are. The guys that were recruited to our level that aren't playing are going to find, I think all the talent is going to find its appropriate space, its appropriate level. The guys that aren't quite, they're 2s and 3s and they want to be 1s, they might have to jump down one division. They might have to jump down 2 divisions. But the guys that are all conference guys in some of the other divisions, they're going to jump up So I think what you're going to see is a leveling out of the talent competing against appropriate talent. And really just the depth charts really not creating parity, because it's not a design function of, take from one to give to another to create parity. So I don't think that's probably the right.
It's kind of a homeostasis where it finds its own level.
Yes. I think that's where the transfer portal will end up really helping everybody, because in my humble opinion, if I was advising a high school player, is do your best to find your appropriate level. And that, basically is just the opposite of what I think will happen. Because when you tell a young man, find your appropriate level, what does that mean? He has no appropriate. He's 16, 17, 18 years old. He's never been in a game. He doesn't know what it's like.
I'm QB1 all the time.
And everybody tells me I'm good.
Right.
So there's nothing in my experience. There's nothing in my vault. There's nothing that would tell me that I am not exactly what everybody is telling me that I am.
Yeah, perspective is everything. When I first got to Cal, we played UOP for our first game. Came out of a wing T system. I sucked in camp. I was awful. And so we show up, and Todd Powers, who was our fullback, who was like 6'2", 240, ran a 4.5 or 4.6, like just a beast, takes the ball down the sideline and gets hit by the strong safety from UOP. And it was violent. And it was right in front of me. And I'm on the sideline. My first thought was, I can't play here. I definitely can't play here. Because you come from this all-star, all-state safety, all-state quarterback, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is a big, big pond, and I don't know that I can actually play at this level. So you're right. No young kid, when they're being recruited or finishing a high school season, understands. They don't have the perspective for it. Mm-hmm. And even me, I just went to the Elite 11 and watched the quarterbacks there, because I'm working with quarterbacks all the time. And my perspective of my guys, because I love them, and the perspective of those guys, like getting your eyeballs right in terms of what's right is tough when you're not around it all the time. So I agree with that 100%. I'm sure that you didn't expect so many life lessons when we came on today for this podcast, man. But this is why I appreciate talking to you. Your intellect, kind of your appreciation, your attention, and your intention. I just love that about you.
Well, it's you're around football enough. Football. The only passion of football, it can't just be the X's and O's. For what we do, and, for a big sense of what you do working with younger players, it's how can you help them reach their capacity? I can coach great players. Coaching a great player, you manage great players, and you can develop them through some thought, through some habits, through positive feedback or negative feedback. I think you can make a better player. But the challenge is, how can I make whoever I'm coaching the best player that he could be? Because some people's best they could be will never be past middle school. Some people's best will never be past high school. And as a high school coach, when we work with young players, there are some people that shouldn't be playing high school football, but that is the best player on the team at that position. So how can you inspire, motivate, develop that player to be the very best that his tools could be, all within system, with instruction, with self-talk, with practice? There's so much that we can do to impact our teams, and then you get super philosophical, and then how much you can impact a young man, which is unquantifiable. Yeah, right. I mean, you can crush people. For all the great coaches out there, I bet all of us could find an example when somebody that we looked up to said something that crushed us at that moment.
I guarantee you I can give you 5 of them off the top of my head, like from my career. And I played 11 years pro after, like I can give you examples of that.
Yeah, and it might not be football. It might be soccer. It might be going for a vault, whatever. It might have been t-ball. And so if you don't have kind of that passion, because hell, all of us go out there and yell and scream at kids and tell people how poor they are at doing it. That's not a coach. That's Captain Obvious.
Right.
We can all see the obvious for the most part.
That up, really? Well,
yeah,
well, about coaching me.
There was I got a great story. You guys know Drew Bennett, local guy, right? With UCLA. And he tells this story. He'd tell it a lot better, and it's probably maybe one of those anticlimactic stories. But we're playing for the Titans together, and we're in one of the falls together, one of the training camps, and he has a drop. He runs like a dig in cut and he drops it, and hears from the coach over there, "You got to catch that ball." No.
Yeah.
Instruct me how to do it.
Right.
Instruct me. Turn my hands over. Frame it better. Capture that ball. Pin it. Whatever it is. But it's the Captain Obvious of, we got to make that tackle. Well, thanks, coach.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done that without you.
No shit. Did that take a PhD to figure that one out?
Yeah. How much are they paying you to tell me I got to catch that ball?
Agreed. Having a little bit of experience, right? Having played for so long, I will love being on a football field and hearing somebody, "Oh, you got to meet that tackler," whatever it is. And I'll look at one of the other coaches and I'll look at him and just say, "Great coaching over there. That's what's going on right now." It's so funny. And again, this is why I love you, man. This is why I love what you do, because at the deepest level for a coach, if you are not driven by serving your player, giving them the best that you have to help them do what they do, we do it because we played, we love it, and we want that guy to help us. And you do that. And when I talk to you, I get that from you as a coach.
And I think that's what your heart has to be. And it doesn't mean, so you're talking about heart and the heart to serve, and there's a lot of different connotations to that. But if you don't want to help people get better, it's, think of a impactful teacher you had. I can think of Mr. Sowers, my math teacher back in middle. I mean, I can, there's all sorts of stories, and, they call us coach because there's a ball, but you could call us teacher as well.
Without a doubt. My best coaches have been my best teachers over the course of my life. I appreciate you coming on here today, brother. We got deep and philosophical, which is awesome. I love that part of it. And I love having these conversations with you. I look forward to seeing your defense this fall coming out and kind of what they grow into, what they become.
Well, that makes two of us. Really excited about the guys we're adding. We're continuing to be as aggressive as we can while being mindful with any additions that we're bringing in, and just doing everything we can to put the best product on the field with the best coaches and give ourselves a chance to win more games.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thank you to everybody at home listening to this or watching this. We appreciate your attention to this as well. Always trying to bring you the insights on Cal football and hopefully some life lessons like today as well. For Bear Insider, Ultimate Insider Podcast, I'm Mike Pawlawski. As always, go Bears.